take that chance.
Honor the showrunner. Help me welcome Lauren Hissrich.
Hi Lauren, my name is Chris. I have a YouTube channel here in the Philippines. I was actually at San Diego Comic-Con for the Hall H panel.
Oh, right.
So when I found out that I had the chance to interview today, I was really excited and really happy. So what was the biggest challenge of adapting The Witcher, which existed not just in the novels, but also in the video game world?
You know, I think the biggest challenge really was deciding how to present the story to the world. Because you do have a lot of fans that are familiar with the books, which are written in a very specific order, or familiar with the video games, which have a bunch of side quests and things that aren't from the books. So to me, it was about how to take these characters, how to take this really complicated world, the continent, all of its politics and its kingdoms and its monsters and its history. How do we get an audience to immediately be able to understand what we're talking about with all the crazy city names or all the crazy character names? But also, how do we get them to fall in love with these characters? And that's really the key. A lot of times in The Witcher, characters are lonely. They feel like they don't belong. They feel like they don't fit into their society. They are marginalized. They're told that they're not good enough. That's something, I mean, that's something I can relate to, and I think a lot of audiences can. And those are really, you know, that's really what we're trying to get to in the series, is a sense of empathy for people who aren't like us.
How did you decide which parts of the saga you wanted to include in the first season? Did you write the series with the thought of expanding the universe eventually, or did you plot it with the idea that it will be a one-and-done type of thing?
Oh no, you never plot for one and done, yeah. You know, because I have big dreams, so yeah. I want this show to go for a very long time. But it's interesting because you also have to be prepared. You want every episode to feel like a fully formed episode. You don't want to have to watch the next episode to understand that first one. So every episode needs to stand alone, and then every season needs to stand alone. You need to be able to watch these 8 episodes and feel fully satisfied and fulfilled at the end. But no, I have big dreams of this going for a very long time.
Yeah, actually, that's what I loved about watching, well, the first 5 episodes, is that each episode, it's like when seasons were like 20 episodes long.
Yes, I remember that.
Each episode was, you know, a concrete, one singular story, but eventually it will kind of form at the end.
Well, that's exactly what we were going for. Yeah. So I knew from the beginning that I wanted to really adapt The Last Wish. It's the book that I fell in love with to start, and Geralt has all of these adventures in the books. Yeah. And without even knowing, throughout the adventures, you really start to build this world up. I knew that I wanted to write those stories, and that's what we tried to pull from. But I also knew that we needed to add in an additional narrative thread. The stories have to add up to something. Yeah. You need to be with Geralt, and you need to see him change over the entire season and get to that final point that you're talking about, which is why we changed the order of some of the stories. So when you watch the 8 episodes, they don't take place in the same order as the books, because we really needed each episode to build on the following one. And that's why I started with the story The Lesser Evil, because it's a story that changes Geralt. The final moments of that short story and the final moments of the first episode change his journey for the entire season, and that's, I think, always an exciting way to kick off a character.
I actually really enjoyed that part where you didn't realize that the timelines were not in order, so I love that part.
Good. Now, did you realize that in the first episode?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. That's why when I found out it was like the past or like the future, I was like, ooh, that's pretty good.
It's fun because I think, like, I have my guesses at the moment when everyone is going to realize. But what I hope on rewatching, because it's Netflix, you can rewatch it over and over and over again. I hope on rewatching that you'll see that there are little hints planted in the first episode, and there's a couple more in the second episode, and a couple more in the third. I think it'll be really fun to see when people start to pick up that we're doing something a little intriguing with our narrative.
On my channel, I write and direct skits and fan films. You've been writing and co-producing a lot of shows. And how do you get in the zone to get that inspiration to put out all these awesome content?
Thank you, by the way. The interesting thing about being a television writer, though, is that part of my job is to not sit around and wait for inspiration to come. We have to stay on a very strict deadline. There are people waiting for every script to come out so that they can then go do their jobs. And if I take too long on a script, then that starts impacting, it's a series of dominoes, that starts impacting how well everyone else can do their job. So I keep a very strict schedule for myself, which doesn't involve sitting around waiting for, some sort of gorgeous ideas to hit me. Sometimes it's just about the work. As you know, as a writer, you just have to sit down in front of the computer and you have to start typing. You may not always love what you're doing at first, but eventually you'll find your way there.
You worked with a lot of really great Netflix shows as well. Did your previous work with them define the way you told the story of The Witcher?
Yes and no. It was when I started on Daredevil, which was my first show with Netflix.
Loved it.
Thank you. Obviously based on Marvel Comics. And it was my first real experience at adapting something. And adapting something that had so much source material. When I first started reading the Daredevil comics, I was such a neophyte. I had no idea that there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories. So again, it was just about picking out the story that we knew we wanted to tell and then taking the details from the comic books and making sure that we were honoring them on the screen. That's the same exact process with The Witcher. It's about reading the stories, getting the feelings that you feel when you read them, and making sure that that's what we're putting on the screen.
What is it like working with Henry Cavill, who was a big fan of the series?
It's a dream come true. Obviously, Henry is a lovely guy. He is such a leader on set. He comes prepared. He has a good spirit. People want to work with him. And on all television sets, it's really, the attitude comes from the top down. The greatest thing about Henry, though, is his passion for this franchise. He was a huge gamer, even before we met. And then when I met him and said, hey, it's based on these books, he went out, got all 8 of them, read them straight through. To work with someone who loves the material as much as you do, and who wants to make sure that we're giving the fans the best, it truly is a dream come true.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Awesome. Thank you. The great questions, too.
I will take the girl, protect her, and bring her back unharmed.